Thanks to the folks who led the way. Thanks to the folks, let us thank them every day.
Howdy, my name is Dave Paltz, and this is the Fresh Toones Show. As Black History Month comes to an end here, I thought, well, maybe I'll do a compilation of all the many Black Americans that I've done shows dedicated to. There are 6 people in particular that I did those shows for. They were Harriet Tubman, Frederick Douglass, Sojourner Truth, Rosa Parks, Martin Luther King, and John Lewis. Granted, there are many other folks that I need to do shows on, but for today's show, I'm going to look back and share little segments of those shows and put them together for this Black History Month. The first person I'm going to mention in today's show is Harriet Tubman, and this is what I had to say when I dedicated the show to her memory. Today we're going to honor Harriet Tubman and everything she did with the Underground Railroad and to help so many slaves from the South gain their freedom up north in Canada. I'm going to play a variety of songs. A few of them are fresh tunes, but a lot of them are traditional songs. And this song is called Wade in the Water. That was actually about the Underground Railroad.
Dressed in red,
Trouble the water.
Must be the ones that Moses led.
God's gonna trouble the water.
Wade in the water, wade in the water, children, wade in the water. God's gonna trouble the water. Dressed in white,
God's gonna trouble the water.
Must be the ones getting ready to fly.
God's gonna trouble the water.
Wade in the water, wade in the water, children, wade in the water. God's gonna trouble the water. Dressed in blue,
God's gonna trouble the water.
Must be the ones that made it through.
God's gonna trouble the water.
Wade in the water, wade in the water, children, wade in the water. God's gonna trouble the water. God's gonna trouble the water.
Yeah, yeah, you know
God's gonna trouble the water.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
God's gonna trouble the water.
That was called Wade in the Water. And for the next person that I'd like to recognize on this Black History Month is Frederick Douglass. This is a segment from an old show, and I speak a little bit about the film that I was involved with making called Frederick Douglass and the Women Who Fostered an American Hero. And today's show is dedicated to Frederick Douglass. I was lucky a few years ago, working at Animated Studio, to be able to work with a group of teenagers to put the story of Frederick Douglass together in a cutout animated piece called Frederick Douglass and the Women Who Inspired an American Hero. It was a fun project, and the kids did their best as first-time animators and maybe the first time ever doing narration or voice talent. So the students had a chance to explore a lot of their talents that they never had a chance to express before. So I'm going to play the audio track from their short animated film. This story is called Frederick Douglass and the Women Who Fostered an American Hero.
Walk together, children.
Freedom fighter and human rights advocate Frederick Douglass was well known for his stirring oratory. He is remembered as a publisher of the abolitionist newspaper, North Star, as an important leader of the Underground Railroad, and for influencing President Lincoln, thus the outcome of the Civil War. To understand the man, we must become more aware of his life experience. How did this great strength of character come to be when faced with such tremendous obstacles?
I never saw my mother, to know her as such, more than 4 or 5 times in my life. I do not recollect of ever seeing my mother by the light of day. After a hard day's work, she made her journeys to see me traveling the whole distance on foot, about 12 miles. She would lie down with me, would sing to me to sleep. Sometimes she would call me her little Valentine.
Sleep, my little Valentine.
Long before I wake, she was gone, for she was a field hand, and a whipping is the penalty of not being in the field at sunrise.
Fortunately, young Frederick had the love and guidance of his grandmother Bailey, who would set him on her knee and then say to him,
You know, Frederick, the almighty places a little bitty flame way down inside of each of us. You got to take care of it. You hear? You can't let nobody put yours out.
Come on, cut that backhoe. We got 12 hours to go and 10 wagons to fill.
Come, Teddy, and learn a few of your letters. Well, thank you.
The slave owner's wife was a woman of the kindest heart and finest feelings. She had no experience of how to deal with a slave. Shortly after I went to live with the Alds, Miss Sophia commenced to teach me.
Woman, what's wrong with you? Learning will spoil the best slave in the world. It would forever unfit him to be a slave.
When Frederick heard that, he realized that education was the key to his freedom. From that point on, he set his mind to learning as much as he could. At the age of 16, Frederick was sent to the slave breaker named Edward Covey. His resistance to Covey's violent methods became a defining moment in his life.
Time to take y'all whipping, boy.
You know, Frederick, the almighty places a little bitty flame way down inside. You can't let nobody put yours out.
At that moment, I resolved to fight. I seized Covey hard by the throat, and as I did so, I rose.
I'm going to lay down this heavy load.
Hey, you! Get in here, I need help!
Tried it on at the gates.
Covey and Frederick fought for almost 2 hours until Covey finally gave up, telling Frederick that his beating would have been less severe had he had not resisted. Frederick remembered it differently.
The truth was, he had not whipped me at all. I discovered an important truth that day. Men are whipped oftenest who are whipped easiest. That day I resolved someday gain my freedom.
Frederick was to return to Baltimore. He met Anna Murray, a free black woman, and over time they fell in love, and with the help of friends, plotted Frederick his escape. The train was ready to leave, but Frederick waited. In the pocket of the sailor shirt Anna had made was money she had given him, and the protection paper loaned him by a freed sailor. The document certified that the man carrying the paper was a free seaman. The papers, the money, the red shirt burned against his chest.
Tickets.
Aboard the moving train, Frederick tensed, knowing that if the approaching conductor was not fooled, he and Anna, as well as the two friends, were doomed.
Let's see your free papers, sailor.
Sorry, sir. I'll never carry my free papers to sea with me.
You better have something to show that you're a free man.
Yes, sir. This here paper. See that American eagle on it? That will carry me around the world.
Your papers, sailor.
The relieved Frederick sank back in his seat, and from that day on, he would remain a free man.
Tickets.
Frederick Douglass was and still is a powerful source of inspiration. It is through our continuing efforts that the spark that he struck still burns today. As young Frederick had learned from his grandmother, we must all struggle to keep that little flame alive and never let anyone put it out.
Oh, give me your hand, give me your hand. All I want is the love of God. Give me your hand, give me your hand. You must be loving at God's command. You say you're aiming for the skies. You must be loving at God's command. Why don't you stop your telling lies? You must be loving at God's command. Oh, give me your hand, give me your hand. All I want is the love of God. Give me your hand, give me your hand. You must be loving at God's command. You say you're glad you've been set free. You must be loving at God's command. Why don't you let your neighbor be? You must be loving at God's command. Oh, give me your hand, give me your hand. All I want is the love of God. Give me your hand, give me your hand. You must be loving at God's command.
And that was called Frederick Douglass and the Women Who Fostered an American Hero. I think the kids did a pretty good job. Like a lot of voice recordings, it took a number of takes sometimes to get it down right, but the kids are very patient and finally got it down pretty good, I guess. I must say I did learn a lot from Dr. David Anderson, and he was the chairman of Rochester Freedom Trail Commission. He's quite a historian and storyteller, and I appreciate everything I learned from him to be able to help to put together this story. The next segment of today's show is dedicated to Sojourner Truth, and this is from an earlier show that was totally dedicated to Sojourner Truth. I especially got educated on Sojourner Truth's life when I worked on a children's film, and the kids sang along with me, and we figured out how to do some cutout animation for it, and it was for a women's film festival. She was one of 3 women in that animated video that we dedicated it to. This was the song used in the video, so let me play for you, Ain't Gonna Let Nobody Turn Me Around.
In the 19th century, very few women dared to speak in meeting. Even at a women's rights convention, the men in the audience dominated the conversation. That is, until Sojourner Truth rose and spoke from the podium.
Turn me around, I'm gonna let nobody. Turn me around, I'm gonna keep on walking, keep on talking, gonna build a brand new world.
At a time when most disabled Americans were locked away in asylums, Helen Keller became the first deaf-blind person to graduate from college. As a young girl, she had struggled to learn to even speak. Her breakthrough came when teacher Ann Sullivan helped her understand the word water.
Turn me around, ain't gonna let no rain, no. Turn me around, I'm gonna keep on walking, keep on talking, gonna build a brand new world.
Joan Baez stood with Cesar Chavez and migrant farm workers as they fought for fair wages and safe working conditions. One of her first actions was to accompany Martin Luther King Jr. on a perilous march for voters' rights.
Turn me around, I'm gonna keep on walking, keep on talking, keep on singing, keep on swinging, gonna build a brand new world.
This is the Fresh Toones Show, and today's show is an Inspirational Lives compilation of icons of the Civil Rights Movement. I'm going to leap ahead here a little bit and jump right to Rosa Parks. Rosa Parks, who as an adolescent, I became familiar with what happened in Montgomery, and then later on as a young adult, I learned more about her, and I admired what she was able to do. So important to the whole civil rights movement. I'm going to share some of her story today, and I think I'll get started with sharing one of her quotes. There's plenty of things that she said that we're kind of familiar with, or most of us are. This one I had never seen in a list of quotes, but when I saw it, it made me laugh a little as a quote of hers to share in a list of quotes. And it's just one word. It's got 3 letters to it, N-A-H, and it was her response when she was asked to give up her seat to a white man. So to start my list of quotes from Rosa Parks, I'm just going to start with this one, and it's, nah. In light of that quote, I'm going to share a song called If There's a Will, There's a Way, which she certainly believed in.
America can't breathe if we refuse to see the things we need to change today. We've worked through harder things, some say this one's too big. There's a will, there is a way. So lift up your eyes now, stand up and say, well, she's not perfect and neither am I. We've got to work together if we want to survive. We've got to use our heads and figure it out and be brave enough to look at ourselves. 'Cause America can't breathe if we refuse to see the things we need to change today. We've worked through harder things, some say this one's too big. But there's a will, there is a way. We've got to lift up our eyes now, stand up and say, well, she's not perfect and neither am I. We've got to work together if we want to survive. We've got to use our heads and figure it out. Be brave enough to look at ourselves. 'Cause America can't breathe if we refuse to see the things we need to change today. We've worked through harder things, some say this one's too big. But if there's a will, there is a way. 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 If there's a will, there is a way.
And now I'm going to share a segment from a radio show that I did quite a while ago, dedicated to Dr. Luther King Jr. This guy was a real inspiration to me as a young kid, maybe around, 12 years old or whatever, when I started to hear about the work of Martin Luther King. And it really impacted me, so I figured for his birthday, this would be my way of saying happy birthday and showing my appreciation. I've got a bunch of songs that probably were inspired by things that I saw when I was 12 and 13 years old, back in 1964 and 65. I'd like to start out with a song that I wrote, kind of with him in mind. I have a pretty cool video, or at least I think it's pretty cool, using some footage from back in the days of the civil rights movement. And if you search for One of These Days, it should come up. It's a Dave's Fresh Tunes. Let me play that song for you right now. One of These Days. One of these days, we're gonna find a better way. One of these days, we're gonna sit right up and say, we're gonna find it in our hearts to let our love do its part. One of these days, we're gonna find a better way. One of these days, justice will prevail, when we can march for rights without the threat of jail, when we can sing it from our hearts and know it's just the start. One of these days, justice will prevail. One of these days, there's gonna be a fair wage. If we work hard, we should get a decent pay. They say what we're not worth, but we work hard for what we earn. One of these days, we're gonna get a fair wage. One of these days, we're gonna see the sun come out. Realize the fruits that so long we did without. We're gonna fill those baskets full and share them, yes we will. One of these days, we're gonna see the sun come out. One of these days, we're gonna find a better way. One of these days, we're gonna sit right up and say, we're gonna find it in our hearts to let our love do its part. One of these days, we're gonna find a better way. One of these days, we're gonna find a better way. One of these days, one of these days, one of these days, we're gonna find a better way. I know there may be some folks out there that think that's pretty silly to think that things are ever going to get better, but things have improved, and Martin Luther King would be one of the first to recognize that, even though he could see that we had a long ways still to go. Well, I'm going to wrap up today's Fresh Tune Show dedicated to Black History Month and 6 icons who were such a big part of the civil rights movement. The last person that I'm going to focus on today is John Lewis, and regretfully he passed on recently, but his spirit lives on. His history of fighting for civil rights goes back to the 1950s, and today I want to draw some attention to the struggles that he was involved with. And John Lewis was quite a lighthearted guy sometimes, and he would often tell his stories, especially when he was campaigning, of when he was a kid, and he always wanted to be a preacher. So he'd practice with the chickens that they had on his farm, and he'd preach away, telling them the stories of the Bible. It's probably a good place to begin his story, a youngster preaching to the farm animals. And today's first fresh tune that I'm going to share with you is called Sunday School. It's a song I wrote about folks who forgot everything they learned in Sunday school and figured all that stuff they were teaching us as kids was just meant for Sunday school and not really for the real world. Well, John Lewis knew that in his life, he wanted to live out some of those things that he learned in Sunday school. And that's what this song is called, Sunday School.
Mama, is it true? The end justifies the means. The good of the tribe excuses the evils that they do. Mama, is it true? Tell me without flinching. Was the love once taught to me just meant for Sunday school? A Sunday school, a Sunday school. Love was just for Sunday school. Daddy, is it true? Folks once fought for equal justice. Didn't march through town chanting words of hate. Daddy, was it true? Please tell me the answer. Can we try to live with love, or was that just for Sunday school? A Sunday school, Sunday school. Love was just for Sunday school. Sister, is it true that you suffered for so long under the yoke of misogyny? Sister, is it true that we've got so much yet to do to live the words we heard in Sunday school? Sunday school, a Sunday school. Love was just for Sunday school. Brother, have you heard all of the questions? Can we find a way to find some better ways? Can we work together and live with compassion? Or was all this talk of love just meant for Sunday school? A Sunday school, Sunday school. Love was just for Sunday school. A Sunday school, Sunday school. Love was just for Sunday school.
That's it for the Fresh Tune Show today. Have a great week. Stay creative. Keep sharing your love. So long now. Bye.
Thanks to the folks who led the way. Thanks to the folks, let us thank them every day.